Good morning.
Good morning.
I will read from Psalm 22 if you'd like to follow along. Thank you, Andre, for that introduction. Thank you all for your attention. Psalm 22, beginning at verse 1. It reads, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors trusted. Someone say trusted. They trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they trusted, and you delivered them. They were not put to shame. But I am a worm. I am not human, scorned by others and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They make mouths at me. They shake their heads. Commit your cause to the Lord. Let him deliver, is what they say. Let him rescue the one in whom he delights. Yet it was you who took me from the womb, and you kept me safe on my mother's breast. On you I was cast from my birth, and since my mother bore me, you have been my God. So do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help. This morning we will talk briefly about when hope hurts. When hope hurts. There are two fantastic preachers that have gone before me, and they have jaywalked all through my message, so act like you ain't never heard nothing I'm about to say, all right? The book of Psalms is a perfect springboard for our theme of worship. The Psalms remind us of who we worship. For instance, Psalm 27 declares that we worship the King of glory, the Lord strong and mighty, the one who is mighty in battle. The Psalms remind us of how to worship. Recall Psalm 47 that says, clap your hands, O ye people, and shout to God with a voice of triumph. And the Psalms remind us of why we worship. The last verse of Psalm 100 gives what is arguably the most simple explanation of why we worship, simply because God is good. But, my siblings, there are times when the circumstances of life strip the praise from our lips and seemingly robs us of our will to worship. Yes, it can become difficult to worship when it seems that all hell is breaking loose. It can become difficult to worship when you have more student loan debt than you have income. It can be hard to worship when those who claim to have your back turn their backs on you after they've stabbed you in yours. It can be hard to worship when there's a target on your back because you were born with the wrong color skin, or you were born on the wrong side of the train tracks. It can be hard to worship when society makes it clear that you don't matter. It's especially hard to worship when the church, the called of God, drag you out like last week's garbage after you've served and poured your all into the cause of ministry. What do you do in these hard times? What do you do when you just can't worship? In addition to the Psalms of praise and thanksgiving, we find these Psalms of lament. And what we must understand, that lament is a legitimate form of worship. There is lesson in lamenting, and the first thing we must learn is this. Now, this might sound heretical to some of you, but I want you to bear with me. The lesson is this: it is okay to question God. It's okay to question God. If you look at many of the Psalms of lament, they begin with interrogatives. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Why, O Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In our text this morning, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me? It's natural to question your suffering. Unless one is a masochist, one does not simply sit back and enjoy suffering. No, when the trials and tribulations come, we want to know. We've got questions that need answers. Why is this happening to me, and how long will I have to suffer? What we must understand this morning is that asking questions is important. And according to the principles of interpersonal communication, interrogation is a primary information-seeking behavior that is foundational for relationship building. Simply put, in other words, you cannot build a relationship without asking questions. Think about the encounters you've had this week at this conference. In all likelihood, you've asked some folk some questions. What is your name? Where are you from? And you ask questions. You ask questions in hopes of establishing a relationship. The more intimate the relationship, the more intimate the questioning. The more intimate the questioning, the more intimate the relationship. And the cycle continues. The interrogation that we find in this introductory verse of our text implies a deep relationship. Yes, the intense agony depicted here suggests the psalmist is addressing someone with whom they've had a deeply intimate connection. You can't have a relationship with someone and you can't miss someone with whom you don't know. You can tell because the text says that the psalmist cries to them during the day and calls upon them late in the night. You don't do that to someone you don't know, or else that would make you a stalker. No, when you find yourself between a rock and a hard place, you call someone you know. You call somebody close to you. You call someone you feel you can count on. You call someone and you hope that they pick up the phone and come to your rescue. Oh, yes, there's hope today. And when you question God and entreat God to work on your behalf, that God will answer you. When you question God, God will answer you. Now, I dare not rush to celebration just yet, because the answer may not come in the way that you expect, but oftentimes if we look closely enough, the answer is right in front of us. You can just look around and see what God is doing for everyone else. Like that friend who's made it through seminary and is pastoring a relatively large church accompanied by an equally relatively large salary package. Or when all of your friends are getting married and booed up, but you're still cuddling with Mr. Pillow and Sister Sheets. You can only hope that since God is in the neighborhood, surely God will come knocking on your door. You can only hope. But perhaps that doesn't do it for you. Perhaps your situation is a little deeper than that, and you need it to hit a little closer to home. So like the psalmist in our text, you can reflect upon what God has done in your house and in your bloodline. You can think about what God did for your ancestors, what God did for them, how God brought them out of slavery and brought them through the Holocaust, brought them through apartheid, brought them through the Great Depression, brought them through the pangs of racism and segregation. Perhaps you can take a little bit of comfort in these and say that if God can deliver mama and grandmama and them, surely I can have hope that God will bring me through what I'm going through. And usually this would be a good place to shout and go ahead and celebrate, and I can close and take my seat. But unfortunately, there are times when even this is not enough to will your soul to worship. Sometimes hope hurts. There's a scene in the movie was playing the other night in my hotel room, The Dark Knight Rises, good Batman film, where Bane, which is the villain, subdues Batman and holds him prisoner in this deep pit. Now, at the top of this pit, the pit is left uncovered so that those in prison can see freedom, but not obtain it. Bane makes a striking claim, and he says this, it was so profound I had to preach it. He says that there can be no true despair without hope. There can be no true despair without hope. Now, at first glance, this phrase seems paradoxical because the very definition of despair is to be without hope. But if we look closely at what Bane is saying here, he says that sometimes seeing a way out of a situation but not being able to reach it hurts more than the situation itself. What he's saying is simply, sometimes hope hurts. Some of us may be able to relate when you look up out of your own pit and you see what God is doing for everyone else and how everyone else but you seems to be prospering. You think about how God delivered those in ages past, but yet you are still going through in the present. You're suffering and no one is there to comfort or help you. You're suffering and folks instead despise and dehumanize you. That's when it gets personal and you begin to question again, God, why have you forsaken me, Lord? Lord, why me? I thought we were close. God, we talk every day. I serve your people. I tend to your flock. I preach your gospel. I've been faithful. I've sacrificed. I've given up everything to do your will, oh God. It's me. It's me. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need, and there's nobody else that can help me but you, oh God. God, I know you're able to bring me out, God, so why haven't you? Is there anybody in here that's had to ask, why, God? Yeah. Where are you? Yes. So what do you do? What do you do, brother? When hope is not good enough? What do you do when hope hurts? And my answer for you this morning is simple. You supplement your hope with trust. Supplement your hope with trust. You see, you understand that there's a key distinction between hope and trust. The dictionary defines hope as a feeling of expectation and desire for something to happen. But trust is defined as a firm belief in the reliability of someone or something. Simply put, hope is a feeling, but trust is faith. So in order to get out of the pit, you've got to find a way to get out your feelings and put your trust in God. Like the psalmist, you've got to get personal. You've got to stop looking around and begin to look within. See, once you get through looking at what God did for your neighbor and for your ancestors, you can think back over your own life and recall the times that God delivered you, the times that God kept you, the times that God worked on your behalf time and time again. The psalmist goes back to when they were in utero, understanding that God had been with them since before day one. Maybe you have a similar story. Perhaps there were complications with your birth, and the doctors had to perform an emergency C-section. Maybe you were born prematurely, or perhaps you were born to what others might consider unfit parents. Perhaps you have encountered growing up poverty, abuse, or injustice, but you've made it. God carried you through. He's been with you every step of the way. You still made it, and you're still here. And with that, you can move beyond hoping that God can and trusting that God will. And that's the good news that I have for you this morning. You can have an assurance that since God did it before, God will do it again. So while you're still in your pit and you can't see a way out, trust that God will make a way out of no way. Trust that God will provide for you. Trust that God will find a way to pay Sally Mae. Trust that God will carry you through school. Trust that God will provide you with gainful employment. God will mend broken families. God will prosper your ministry when everyone else have left you, despised and scandalized your name. Trust that God will rock you in the midnight hour. Trust that God will dry your weeping eyes when it seems like all hope is lost. Trust that God will come to your rescue. And I have something to tell you this morning. Because God will, I will. Because God will, I will worship. Because God will, I will praise. I dare somebody to get an I will in your spirit. Because God will, I will bless you. Because God will, I will extol you. I will honor you. I will magnify you. I'll preach your word when I don't feel like it. God, I'll continue to fight for you. I'll continue to serve you. And God, I will trust you. Because when hope hurts, I will trust in the Lord. God bless you.